We all witnessed the story of Tanjiro becoming a demon slayer to save Nezuko, who turned into a demon. However, what would happen if the roles were reversed? How would Nezuko's journey as a demon slayer turn out? But more importantly, what would her breathing technique look like? In this scenario, Muzan attacks the Kamado household. But this time, instead of Tanjiro going out and selling charcoal, it is Nezuko. When she came back, she immediately found out that everyone in her family was dead. However, just as she thought all hope was lost, Tanjiro started standing up and pounced on. Luckily, she was able to stop him by blocking his bite with a nearby broken branch. They kept on struggling, but as time went on, Tanjiro was slowly overpowering. Nezuko tried to run away, but Tanjiro was too fast and pinned her down again. He even broke the branch and was about to end her life when suddenly, a lady with a thin sword stabbed Tanjiro in the shoulder and pulled her away. Who was it? Well, it was none other than our friendly neighborhood insect Hashira Shinobu. She cried out at Shinobu and even tried to hit her, saying that she hurt her brother, which made the Hashira feel confused. That's when she realized that Nezuko was in a really precarious situation, but she also said Nezuko that it was too late and her brother would pass away soon. Hearing this, Nezuko looked at her brother, and that's when she realized Tanjiro was in pain. Blood was pouring out of his eyes, his veins were popping, and he was gagging just like something was choking him. Nezuko could do nothing but watch as her brother would die a horrible death. However, Tanjiro suddenly stopped moving, so both Shinobu and Nezuko thought he died, but he started twitching, sat up, and immediately looked at both of them. This time, there was no blood in his eyes, and it was like nothing had ever even happened. Nezuko was confused, but Shinobu was terrified. She knew that the wisteria poison she inserted into Tanjiro via her sword was enough to kill a mid-level demon in seconds, but despite recently turning, he adapted to the poison in a short amount of time. It didn't even look like there were any side effects. Shinobu immediately put her guard up and hurriedly ordered Nezuko to stand behind her and ordered her to run if something were to happen. Tanjiro crouched and in a fraction of a second jumped towards where Nezuko and Shinobu successfully stopped Tanjiro's initial attack, but she was shocked that not only was he sturdier, but his strength felt closer to that of a lower move. The fight drags on, and as we all know, Shinobu made her sword that way because she doesn't have enough strength to cut off a demon's head. With that in mind, and because of Tanjiro's newfound growth, he was slowly overpowering her. Seeing this, Nezuko was left with a choice: to save Shinobu and kill her brother, or leave her to die and handle him all by herself. With time running out, Nezuko makes a choice, and she immediately throws herself to her brother and saves Shinobu. Shinobu was shocked and angry seeing this because she clearly told her to run. Tanjiro clawed right through her and even bit her shoulder, but after she repeatedly cried out his name, the little bit of humanity left in him came out and he stopped. He pushed her away and ran into the forest out of his own instinct. Nezuko tried to catch up to him, but Shinobu stopped her, and she never saw Tanjiro again from that point on. A year passes, and Shinobu takes Nezuko in with her to the Butterfly Mansion. At first, Nezuko had the same role as Aoi in the original series. However, she had secretly trained with Kanao, and both girls became close friends. Nezuko basically followed what Tanjiro did in the original series and told Kanao to make her own decision. The two became close friends, and a few months ago, Kanao agreed to train Nezuko in swordsmanship. Time went on, and both girls revealed what they were up to Shinobu. Instead of being disappointed, Shinobu agreed to give her proper training in the insect breathing technique, and her skills grew even more exponential. As time went on, she eventually took the final selection exam and passed with flying colors. She was now a full-fledged demon slayer under the insect breathing technique. Now that she was in this position and even had her own crow, she was sent with Kanao to an isolated village atop the mountains where a random demon was picking off the villagers one by one. In addition, the lower-ranked demon slayers that were sent there have not responded at all. They start traveling, and when they get there, the entire village is abandoned. There was not a single person in sight, although the ground and walls of some of the houses were splattered with blood. They go through every single house, and they discover that one closet is locked. They forced it to open, and that's when they discovered one survivor, a wounded, low-ranked demon slayer. They asked him what happened, and all he said was that there was a red-haired demon with a scar on its forehead that looks like a flame mark that attacks during the night and takes 2 to 3 people with him. He also told them that 5 demon slayers, including him, were sent on this mission a week ago. However, each night since then, the demon has killed at least one demon slayer or village. He tried to defend the village, but when he saw just how strong the demon became, he got scared and hid himself while the demon massacred the rest of the village's population. He started crying, and then there was a roar. When he heard this, he told Kanao and Nezuko that before the demon attacked, he would let out the same sound as if he was hurt. The low-ranked demon slayer shivered on the floor, and both Kanao and Nezuko put their guards up. They went out to see what was happening, but suddenly something blew a hole through the house they were just in, and when they turned around, something was dragging the low-ranked demon slayer through the hole. They tried to stop it, but it was just too fast, and all they heard were screams of pain and then silence. The demon attacked them again, and this time it aimed for Nezuko, but she was able to dodge it. It kept dashing left and right, up and down, and it attacked Kanao too, but she dodged it as well. It stopped in front of them, and when both of them took a better look, she was in shock. It was none other than Tanjiro, and he was stronger than he ever was before. Now, at this point, Tanjiro was a rogue demon just like Nezuko was in the original series, and he had no connection to Muzan whatsoever. The only difference is that Nezuko could control her urge, but since Tanjiro was already exposed to human flesh, his demonification completely went through. Now he has lost all sense of his humanity and is a man-eating monster. The fight starts when Tanjiro lunges at them, and this time not only does he have increased strength, but he also has awakened his blood demon art. Tentacles made from his bones started coming from his back. He was now in a crouching position, like a predator, and he immediately charged straight first into both Kanao and Nezuko. They fought back, but Nezuko was immediately blown away by Tanjiro, leaving Kanao the only one left to fight him. He charged again, but Kanao managed to get some blows in. However, when she looked at Tanjiro again, he healed like it was nothing. That's when Kanao realized that Tanjiro was no longer at lower moon level. He was basically an upper moon at this point, and they could not beat him no matter what they did. Nezuko jumped in, and without hesitation, cut off one of Tanjiro's tentacles, but it just regrew itself. As retaliation, he stabbed Nezuko's shoulder, and lucky for her, before it ripped a hole through her body, Kanao came in to stop it. They regrouped, and now we're on the defensive. Lucky for them, Kanao sent out her crow to call for reinforcements, and at the right time, Shinobu with Gyu arrived. Seeing this, Tanjiro retreated into the forest and was too fast for both Hashiras to catch up to. Tanjiro and Kanao were brought back to the Butterfly Mansion to rest and recoup. While retreating into the forest, Tanjiro ran into some lower-ranked demons who were on their way to investigate the commotion near their territory. Who were they? Well, they were none other than the Spider Demon family under Rui, the Lower Moon 5. They ask Tanjiro about what happened, but he doesn't respond. This makes Rui angry, and he orders the brother Spider Demon to send all of his little creepy spider creatures to overwhelm Tanjiro and make him a part of their family. But in a flash, every single one of those minions was annihilated. Not a single one of them could believe what just happened. Most of them were scared, except for Rui, who was just pissed off. Seeing what had just happened, he ordered the father Spider Demon to smash Tanjiro into a pulp. But just as the father Spider Demon raised his hands high into the sky so that he could crush Tanjiro, Tanjiro activated his blood demon art, biokinesis, and cut both its hands. Not only that, but Tanjiro also cut its legs, and then finally, its head. In no more than a minute, the father Spider Demon was killed, Rui's strongest creation. The others tried running, but before she could disappear, Rui killed the sister Spider Demon himself and ordered the remaining members of the Spider Demon family to attack Tanjiro at the same time. Tanjiro destroyed them in seconds, and he even ate the brother Spider Demon's body while he was at it. Rui was fuming, but he knew that the second he attacked, he would suffer the same fate as the rest of his family. So what he did was that while Tanjiro was busy eating, he surrounded him with his threads and used his sturdiest and sharpest. When he saw the opportunity to finally kill Tanjiro once and for all, he wrapped him with his thread. But as he tried to close this prison, one by one, his threads were breaking. He couldn't believe his eyes until the thread prison exploded and Tanjiro came out without even a single scratch. Rui tried to attack again, but Tanjiro immediately cut off his head, ending the life of the Lower Moon 5 in an overwhelming manner. But his problems don't end there. You see, because someone killed an Upper Moon and it was an unknown demon of all things, Muzan became very heavily invested in the entire situation since he knows everything that has happened so far by tapping into Rui's memory. The Lower Moon meeting still takes place, and he kills the rest of the Lower Moons, except Enmu, the Lower Moon one. Except Enmu isn't going to the Mugen Train. Sure, Muzan still gives him his blood, but Enmu's mission is to defeat and hunt down the rogue demon that killed Rui. This doesn't happen in an instant, as it took Enmu weeks just to find Tanjiro. What he did was follow the trail of death and destruction as Tanjiro kills both demons and demon slayers alike. When Enmu finally finds him though, Tanjiro is even stronger than he was when he faced Nezuko and Kanao. He's basically a whole other being at this point in time. You see, in the main series, Enmu activated his blood demon art, which forced his target to sleep by using whispers of forced unconscious hypnosis. Tanjiro falls for it the first time, and he's instantly brought to a dream that's about his family. However, he immediately wakes up. Why? Because Tanjiro doesn't even remember his family in the first place. As a demon, Tanjiro's mind was so blurry that he had no memory of his human past, so he just instantly killed everyone in his subconsciousness, ruining Enmu's dream. This happened a few times until Tanjiro decided that he had enough and burst his eardrums and blinded himself. Enmu was shocked that he would go through so much just to fight him. Even though he was blind and deaf, Tanjiro used his smell to find Enmu's location, since his nose is just as sensitive as in the original timeline. With this, he completely turned the tables, and no matter what Enmu did, it had no effect on Tanjiro. Tanjiro eventually overwhelmed Enmu and defeated him, but there was someone watching from the sidelines from the beginning, and it was none other than the Demon King himself, Muzan Kibutsu. Tanjiro tried to attack him, but Muzan immediately restrained Tanjiro. He didn't kill Tanjiro because aside from Tamayo, who escaped from his control after Yoriichi sliced him to pieces, he was the only one that he felt had no connection to him whatsoever. He asked Tanjiro a bunch of questions, like where he was from or who he was before, but Tanjiro couldn't answer him. When Muzan asked him why he kept living, Tanjiro said that he just wanted to eat. Weirdly enough, this made Muzan smile. Tanjiro was unlike the other demons who had an alter ego. He was just a wild beast running around trying to satisfy his growing appetite. Muzan offered him a choice: to die here or to come with him where he'll constantly fight stronger demons and eat as much food as he can. Just like in the beginning, Tanjiro thought with his stomach and immediately went with Muzan. Muzan took him to the Infinity Castle, and that's when he met the Upper Moons. At first, the Upper Moons laughed at him, thinking he was just another brainless demon. But Muzan told them that any of them who were brave enough to fight Tanjiro should would step forward and that if they killed Tanjiro, Muzan would give them a reward. At first, Akaza stepped up, but then it was followed by Daki and Gyoko, while the others stayed behind for their own personal reasons. Muzan told Daki to come first and prove herself to him. Tanjiro looked at Daki and didn't even mind her. Instead, he immediately jumped at Gyoko. This made Muzan laugh, and he ordered both Akaza and Daki to stay behind, while Gyoko should entertain him by fighting Tanjiro. Obviously, the two were pissed, but they knew that if they disobeyed Muzan, they would immediately die, so they had no choice and followed his orders. Tanjiro poised himself in his crouching position again as more and more bone tentacles sprouted from his back. Muzan was smiling, seeing as his abilities were closer to his than any demon he had created before. Gyoko didn't know this, so he just thought that there was no way Tanjiro could kill him if he had this simple of an ability. But when the fight started, Gyoko immediately regretted his thoughts. No matter how many fish monsters he kept throwing at Tanjiro, he immediately killed them. And if Gyoko did land an attack, Tanjiro's regeneration was so fast that it might have been on par with Doma's. When Tanjiro attacked him, Gyoko teleported from vase to vase. At the start, Tanjiro couldn't even touch him, but as time went on, Tanjiro got faster and faster, and wherever Gyoko teleported, Tanjiro was already dashing towards there. Now we know Gyoko isn't the strongest upper moon, and he's more of a speed and tactics kind of guy, so in a battle of strength, Tanjiro would ultimately defeat him. In the end, Tanjiro annihilated Gyoko as he adapted to Gyoko's speed and pattern. Instead of just killing him, he even ate him, and he grew even stronger. After their fight, Akaza stood up saying it was his turn, but Muzan stopped the entire thing, saying that he didn't want to lose another upper moon. At that point, Tanjiro was crowned as the new upper moon 5, and he got his own territory that he could really roam and rampage on. Now, there are several things that have happened that would already affect the timeline at this point in time. First, the Mount Natagumo arc wouldn't even exist, as there would be no real danger left there since Tanjiro already killed Rui and his spider demon family. The other thing is that if the Swordsmith Village arc does happen, then the demons would have one less attacker going there, and even without Tanjiro or Nezuko's help, both Muichiro and Kanroji would be enough to defeat Hantengu on their own. So let's say that 2 arcs from the original series did happen. Tengen went with the girls from the Butterfly Mansion to spy on the Entertainment District arc, and all of them were killed by the Upper Moon 6 siblings since they lacked the manpower and firepower to overpower those two. So Tengen, his wives, and the girls he brought with him just died. This is just a sure result, because if Tengen didn't even survive, then he would still pass away due to Gyutaro's poison that had no cure, except for Nezuko's pyrokinesis in the original timeline. On the other hand, Nakame's eyeball spies located the Swordsmith Village, and Muzan sent Hantengu to kill everyone in it, as it was the most logical option since he could divide himself into multiple clones. However, what they didn't take into account was that Muichiro was in the village itself, and Kanroji was nearby. Muichiro initially fought a hard battle against Hantengu, and with Mitsuri's help, they successfully killed Hantengu without any of them losing their life. But the most important thing that changed here is that during the Swordsmith Village arc, no one awakened their Demon Slayer marks, and Nezuko doesn't have one either. You see, Tanjiro awakened it, and made the others around him awaken theirs, because his scar was similar to a Demon Slayer mark in the first place. So he was technically born with it, just like Yorichi. The Demon Slayers would be in a whole lot of trouble because they are now missing one of their most important assets in order to win against the stronger. Now, they would just have to rely on their numbers. Now that we know what happened, let's move on to Nezuko's perspective. And this was after the events of the Entertainment District arc and Swordsmith Village arc. Shinobu and the other residents of the Butterfly Mansion were heartbroken from their loss, but they were just as relieved when they heard that Muichiro and Kanroji were safe. What's even worse is that demon activity has been ramping up, and now Shinobu with Kanao and Nezuko were tasked with investigating an abandoned temple in the mountains that's suspected to be the hideout of a demon. The girls go there, and when Shinobu opens the doors, her eyes widen, her veins pop, and her entire body just has goosebumps. The demon in front of them was none other than Doma, the Upper Moon 2, and the same demon that killed their sister a while back. Lucky for her, Kanao was there to calm her down, and Nezuko put herself between Shinobu and Doma. Of course, with Doma being Doma, he starts saying some really mean stuff to Shinobu, and even says that he doesn't remember killing Kane. This made Shinobu even angrier, and she ordered the other girls to back her up on both sides while she fought Doma. Well, at that instant, Shinobu blitzes Doma and lands a good hit right at the center of his head. This makes Doma laugh as to how could he die if she just stabbed him and not cut his head off. Shinobu retreats and orders the other girls to buy her time, and that's when Doma uses his blood demon art to freeze the door behind them. Doma then slowly started walking towards them while peppering them with so many attacks that the only thing they could do was defend, and when Doma was smiling right at their faces, the poison finally started kicking in. It had the same effect as Tanjiro's, and using this opportunity, Kanao and Shinobu cut off his head using their respective breathing techniques. They finally did it, or so they thought. Doma immediately picked up his head and reattacked it. Not only that, Shinobu was unprepared and didn't bring her most potent wisteria poison, so he quickly adapted to that as well. Shinobu ordered all of them to retreat again and get out of his range as fast as possible. She stabbed him multiple times again as well to re-deliver the wisteria back into his vein. However, they weren't fast enough, and Doma gets his hands on Shinobu. Kanao tries to stop by cutting off his arm, but she's immediately blown away by his ice that sends her crashing into a wall. Now, Nezuko was the only one left standing between Doma and the death of her master and friend. She was the weakest out of the three, and without a doubt, she was afraid that she would die here and not get a chance to talk to her brother. That's when she remembers a memory of her father dancing the Hinokami Kagura. She calmed herself down, and using that as inspiration, she uses a different breathing technique, and her sword produces pink flame. She was so fast that Doma couldn't even react, and both his arms were cut off. But after the attack, Nezuko's nose started bleeding, and she fainted. Using this golden opportunity, Shinobu grabs both Kanao and Nezuko as they run away from the temple and back into safe territory. Everyone rests and heals their wounds as they hear the news that every available Demon Slayer is to go back to headquarters and train for an upcoming mission. Just like in the original timeline, the Hashiras trained the Demon Slayers for the final battle against Muzan. Tengen is dead, but Rengoku is alive since Tanjiro stopped the Mugen train incident from happening. While on the demon side, only Gyoko and Hantengu died. But Gyoko was replaced by Tanjiro, and Hantengu was replaced by Nakame. This means that although he was a strong demon, Kaigaku would not be among the upper moons. But what about Inosuke and Zenitsu? It's safe to say that they might have survived at this point and may have been under the guidance of Rengoku or Giyu. They train their forces, and now, as in the main story, Muzan arrives at the Ubuyashiki estate. Kagaya blows it up along with some members of his fam, signaling the start of the battle. The Hashiras descend on Muzan, and Gyomei lands a hit on his head, but he eventually brings all the Demon Slayers into the Infinity Castle, and behold, everything is now in chaos. But there's a twist. Tamayo isn't here. Yes, the only reason why the Demon Slayers even knew Tamayo existed was because of Tanjiro. Now that that event didn't even happen, the anti-Kibutsuji drug wasn't invented, and Muzan's strength was at full capacity. And this is on top of the Demon Slayers not awakening the Demon Slayer. Since Shinobu was with Kanao and Nezuko, they were also teleported together. There, they faced Doma, but he didn't have that smile on his face. No, he looked angry, which is rare since he could feel any emotions in the first place. He evilly laughed and said that it was time for him to get some good old revenge. That's when he revealed his hands. It turns out Nezuko's Hinokami Kagura had a little twist and was different from Tanjiro. It had the ability to hinder or possibly even stop a demon's regeneration. This stems from the fact that when Nezuko was a demon, her blood demon art healed people and burned demons to the point where the regeneration speed of an upper moon was slowed down by almost 60%. Doma displayed his arms to Nezuko and the girl, and his regrown part looked burnt, and he said that it was the first time that he could feel pain. As for the other battles, they mostly stayed the same. Rengoku will join the fight with Giyu against Akaza, while every other fight remains the same with Kokushibo and Nakame. But the question is, who will fight Dak? Well, this task was given to the Demon Slayers, who were only a rank lower than the Hashiras, and there's a high chance that Zenitsu and Inosuke were part of this force. The battle begins, and Shinobu again lands the first hit on Doma since she is one of the fastest Hashira. This time, it lands right in Doma's eye. As a response, Doma immediately summons his strongest ability as he plans to go all out and defeat them once and for all. However, since Nezuko's Hinokami Kagura dealt a lot of damage and this was further enhanced by Shinobu's poison, Doma's response time slowed down. Using this opportunity, Nezuko attacked Doma again, and she sliced through his legs. He managed to regenerate, but it had the same burnt texture. Their fight dragged on, and Doma even forced Kanao to use her Vermilion Eye and managed to crush one of Shinobu's arms. In the end, though, especially with Nezuko's help, they managed to kill Doma and give a win to the Demon Slayer. But the rest of the battles were not that great. Akaza won against Giyu and Rengoku. Seeing as in the original timeline, the only reason why he lost was that he gave up. Kokushibo also defeated the people he was fighting against, since they didn't have their Demon Slayer marks. While Obanai and Kanroji did defeat Nakame, they were immediately swarmed by lesser demons who came with the Upper Moon's 6 siblings, since those two already defeated the rest of the low-ranked Demon Slayers. But where is Tanjiro? Well, he was just out there rampaging. Everyone steered clear of his way, demons and Demon Slayers alike, since he killed anyone. That's when he encounters Shinobu with Nezuko and Kanao. Another fight breaks out, and they are already wounded against Doma, so Tanjiro easily backs them into a corner. Nezuko was trying to calm Tanjiro down, trying to make him remember, but that's when Muzan came from behind Tanjiro. He teases Nezuko that Tanjiro can't go back to being a human anymore, and he is not even a demon. He is just a wild beast. He orders Tanjiro to attack the girls, and he does so using his bone tent. To counter this, Nezuko uses the Hinokami Kagura and cuts off 2 of his tentacles. Tanjiro gets confused since he can't make them grow back, while Muzan watches in horror as the PTSD starts kicking in. Nezuko talks more to Tanjiro, and because Tanjiro even saw an attack similar to the Hinokami Kagura, his human consciousness starts coming back. All the while, Muzan was fuming, and he ordered Tanjiro again to attack them. But this time, Tanjiro didn't move. Muzan tried to attack them himself, but out of nowhere, Tanjiro stabbed him behind his back. Now, take note that Tanjiro did go back into a human, and he was still a demon, but he had this urge, just like Nezuko did in the original timeline, to protect her brother. Muzan became even angrier at this point and tried to kill Tanjiro, but Tanjiro was saved by Nezuko. The 2 siblings stood side by side and were firm in taking down Muzan. Deep inside, though, Nezuko knew they could win because most of the Demon Slayers were gone, and the only survivors were her, Kanao, and Shinobu. Nezuko told them to run as they were the only hope the Demon Slayer Corps could be rebuilt. And so they did. Nezuko and Tanjiro fought Muzan together, and they were putting up a pretty decent fight. Nezuko even managed to land some solid hits to the point where their attacks did fully heal and left scars. Just like your rate, Muzan was starting to get PTSD, but as the fight was going on, Muzan obtained the upper hand with his demonic ability. Muzan saw an opening to finish off Nezuko, but Tanjiro used his tentacles to block his attack. Nezuko did whatever she could, but in the end, Muzan overwhelmed both of them, and the two siblings died side by side as a demon and a demon slayer. Make sure to subscribe and smash the like button for more Demon Slayer content.